Okay.
Oh, dang.
Here we go. Are you underground?
Yes.
Okay, because it's dark out. Oh, today we're joined by the kitty cat. Oh, don't scratch my face. Hi, kitty cat.
Her basement?
Hi there. Do you want to say something? No? Okay. All right. We should be live and ready to go, so let's do this. Hello, everyone.
Awesome.
Welcome to Podcraft episode 3. Today,
Episode 3.
Episode 3, we did it 3 weeks in a row. Look at us.
Consistency in a time of
It's
crisis.
the most consistent series I've ever had. No, I think I've been a little more consistent with other things, but today we are talking about books, our favorite books in general. So if you got anything you want to add to the conversation, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I'm always down to hear what other people have to say when it comes to like what they like to read and what inspires them.
Yeah, so I'm a writer and I like to write. The problem is I have a really hard time reading, which is really bad. I do read some things, just not as much as probably you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like to read and write. Like, I have a lot of stories in my head that I would love to get to paper.
Yeah.
And I've been ineffective with that at the moment. Like, I've started so many short stories, and then, I just lose track because, writing is difficult. Like, I think
it is.
And I think that's actually something that if you like to read, then you should try to write. I think it kind of goes the same thing with like film stuff. Like if you like movies, you should make a movie,
right?
Because that will make you have a greater appreciation of what it takes to actually put something out there for everybody else. And I'm not talking like, oh, if you just go try and make something and whatever's fine. I'm talking about like the indie stuff is great, but legitimately coming out with something that other people want to consume, is so difficult.
Oh yeah. And just the process, so like I spend a lot of time writing or creating ideas or polishing my work in progress, and it can really take a toll on you, like the amount of work that it really does take to create books. Now, having been around a lot of different authors and things, they tend to, there's some people out there who are like, oh, writing's not that hard. I release a book every 6 months. But a lot of them are
Stephen King.
Well, okay, Stephen King doesn't fall into this category that I'm mentioning, but there's people who they just follow a method. So like there's some authors who their fan base wants, let's just say like sappy romances, right? They don't care how good it is. They don't care how not good it is. They only care that it's a sappy romance, right? And so I've talked to some of these authors who like are pretty fairly well established. Like they sell significant amounts of books through their ebooks on Amazon, and they're self-published, and they say, oh, it's the way to go. It's the way to go. And for me, I'm like, yeah, but your book is just a template. I mean, you just take a template from your first few successful ones, and then you change a few things, change the like turning point, and make the characters slightly different, and then boom, you've got another one. Like, of course you can crank one out in 3 to 6 months. You're not doing a whole lot of new writing, and I'm sure people who write like that would say, oh, well, that's not the case, but
and I think and to an extent, like, like, if you have a following for that, I'm kind of proud of, like, good for you. You're able
Yeah,
to make ends meet doing that. Because, I
right.
mean, there are plenty of stories where that's kind of, that works. I mean, think of most sitcoms that people watch,
Yeah,
and
exactly. That's exactly what
a
it is.
lot of those, yeah, it's plug and repeat, because people, they go to those books not because of the content, but because of the emotion of what they feel
Right. Right.
when reading that. Like, I have a guilty pleasure series like that. I love reading the Mitch Rapp series.
Okay. I don't know that series,
Um,
but
yeah, yeah, not a problem. So the like Mitch Rapp, it's this idea of a guy who, he's a contract killer for the CIA.
okay. That's cool.
Yeah, so like he um the basic premise is that he is a all-star athlete in college, and he had a girlfriend who was on Pan Am 103 Lockerbie, which was an actual terrorist event.
Right.
Um, he wants revenge, and based on his trauma from that experience, he's recruited by the CIA, and because he's already a great athlete and he's super strong, he's kind of like this perfect weapon for them.
Okay.
Um, so like, great book. I mean, great might be a little excessive. Holy smokes! Okay,
But then again, a great book is also up to perspective and your personal preference. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and that's why I call it a guilty pleasure. Is it, is it Tolstoy? Oh, heck no.
Right.
Like, but I really enjoy watching it, because, like, reading it, because of how it makes me feel, and it's just kind of like a guilty pleasure type thing.
Right.
Um, so I don't know.
And again, like there you look at like the Jack Ryan series or any of these like character based series that are just that character in different situations. First of all, that means you have a really good character established, which is really, really, really cool.
Well,
But
and
the
it's
fact that you can
interesting.
put them in any situation and people want to know what that character is going to do in that situation, they don't care if it is as good as the previous one, right?
Right.
They
And I
really only
mean,
care that it has that character and that he's beating people up or whatever he's doing.
and you've got that with Jack Ryan. You've got that with Jack Reacher as well. With
Mm-hmm.
who's the guy who writes those stories? I can't remember. I used to read those as well, like those. But I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, those are those types of books where it's like people love the character, and those types of books, like, you can generally tell the method of the author. Like, yep, there's going to be a love interest for this book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's going to
Yep.
probably work in the same motive. And, well, yes, and I kind of agree with you. Like, yes, it can.
It can feel
It's
somewhat repetitive
easier,
at times.
yes, but
But that
and
isn't always
yeah,
a bad
like,
thing.
right, like, I mean, I don't know.
So like for me, so like I've got 20 different books that I've started, right?
Okay.
Some are further along than others. Some are like chicken scratch on a notepad on my computer, right? And some are series and some aren't. But what I am trying to do in at least my universe of things is I kind of try and connect everyone together, but not that they're in the same world or in the same universe or in the same story, but like I'll have like a trinket or something, right? And it was in this other book, but then it's like, or like one of the main examples I can think of off the top of my head is I want to do this historical fiction book about La Reunion and the Madagascar area, and that takes place in 18th century France, and the boat that they sailed on to do this voyage was the Saint Alexis, right? So it's just a ship. And in another story, on someone's desk, a side character's desk, in their like den, there's a ship in a bottle, and it's the Saint Alexis that's in the ship.
So kind of like little Easter eggs that
Right.
tie into other stories. Like they don't have anything to do with the plot.
Right. Yeah. Some of them, some things do, like some things are severe enough to where they do merit that to happen. But I think it's just really fun. Like a lot of people look at, it's kind of like a Pixar thing, you know. Pixar's really good at, they put little Easter eggs.
They're very notorious for like hiding, you know, little characters or like other like
Right.
I know exactly what
Right.
you're talking about.
Just hiding that little thing that makes people go, oh, this is obviously in a similar universe or the same universe. And
Right, and I'm sure you've seen like all the conspiracy theories of all of Pixar movies are actually in the same universe.
yeah, I've seen that. And that's crazy. And that's a whole other level of like, that establishing something to that degree to get other people to look at it and be like, how do all of these stories connect in a timeline, and make people actually want to do that really makes you the peak level of creator. Whether it's whether it's movies or whether it's writing or whatever it is, video games even, like that's crazy to me. But.
Well, and I get that because I've kind of had that feeling as well, where I would love to. There's a couple different series I've had, and some are more like contemporary fiction, and some are like fantasy. And I've toyed with that idea as well of like, how can could I tie all of these stories in to where it's all in one universe?
Right. Yeah. So like a lot of my stories. So some people frown upon this sort of a thing, but in my stories that I like to write, like for me, when I get an idea, right, I don't want to be like, oh, I can't write that. That's not my genre, or that's not my audience, or that's not my like go-to, place in the bookstore.
Your motif.
Right. So like if I was an established science fiction writer, right, but then I had a really good idea for a fantasy novel, why can't I write it? You know what I mean? But a lot of people wouldn't, because their readers aren't looking for fantasy. They just want the sci-fi. But why hold yourself back on a great idea potentially just because it's not your niche? And all of mine kind of fit in that category, where some are sci-fi, some are fantasy, some are more of a modern magic realism, contemporary fiction type stuff, or historical fiction. But they're all individual things to me that I would love to write and create.
Yeah.
So.
And I think part of that comes down to intent of the author.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what a good example of this in my mind is Bernard Cornwell, right? Bernard Cornwell is most famous for writing the Redwall series.
Okay.
And that's not all he wrote. He actually also wrote some series that are like some high seafaring adventures.
Okay.
And I wonder how much of this also comes down to the will of your the will of your shoot. Sorry, there's a bunch of cave spiders in here and I'm getting poisoned, so I'm having to deal with something really fast. The will of the guy who's actually printing your books, of like,
so like your agent or your publisher or your editor.
Right. So it's like, yeah, sure, you might have a cool idea, but that's not what is going to sell, so they're not going to publish it.
Right.
And then that point, that's a business decision.
Right. And I think that there are some politics around that, especially if you're established in the field.
But not established enough that you can write your own ticket.
Right. But like if you were even at that, like people are going to expect a specific thing from you, right? And I would think, though, if you have an agent that is holding you back to something like that, then maybe it's time to think about a different agent, right? Or maybe it's time to think about a different publishing house. Because especially if you're growing or if you're getting more well established, you know, you can go to any publisher and say, look, here's the success I've had. Here's all the books that I've written. Here's the ones that have done well. And here's my idea that my current publisher doesn't want to go with. Would you take it on? And you can get to that point where you can say that.
Yeah, but I think also that depends on your contract. Like
Yeah.
if you are in a contract for 5 years, because you see the same thing in like the music industry, right? It's like, no, you're a pop artist, you have to make pop music. Well, I don't want to. Okay, well, you're under contract for 4 albums or however long. So either you just don't, like I don't know. I could see how you could almost get stuck doing the same thing over and over, and like almost like how it's no fault of your own, like there's no way out type thing.
Yeah, I could see that. But my biggest thing with writing and is that like I like that it makes me feel creative, right? It gives me that.
That sense of accomplishment, like you made something.
Right. And it's also like when you're writing, you want to feel like it's fun. You know what I mean? You want to get those creative juices flowing. And sometimes that means writing something different or in a different genre, or you know what I mean? Like I feel like when you're stuck writing the same genre over and over again, unless you just are so in love with it that that's all you want to do, I just feel like it would become mundane, and over time you're right. I mean, readers would know. A reader of your normal stuff, if all of a sudden you're like hate what you're doing and you don't like the book and you're just doing it because you're contracted to write another sci-fi book, people are gonna know.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that regard.
So like, for me, it's hard to like really find the fine line between those, because I write because I enjoy it, and I write because I enjoy creating and the feeling that I get when I write. And sometimes I don't want to work on a specific book because I'm tired of it, or I don't want to think about it anymore. I want to work on a different project that I've been thinking about on the side.
And that's
You know what I
fair.
mean?
On the flip side, like just devil's advocate, it's also not your livelihood.
Yeah, that's true. And if it was, maybe I'd be like, all right, fine, I'll write another fantasy book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a bit of a off topic, but it's related in a lot of ways, because where books wouldn't exist if it wasn't for writing and the entire industry of
The
writing.
process of
and,
creating stories.
Yeah, and the whole industry of becoming published or not, or how you choose to go down the publishing path, it's really there's so many different ways now that you can go about
Right.
it.
Well, and some of them are better than others depending on what your end goal is. So like
Yeah.
if your goal is to just write and you don't care much about like the method or like the distribution, then you can obviously go self-publish on Amazon or something.
Right.
But if the goal is if you want to like become the next J.K. Rowling or Tolkien,
Yeah.
then you cannot self-publish. That is a death sentence.
Sorry, I have a
Which
visitor.
child is that?
It's Henry. Henry's over here. He's looking for chips. What kind of chips? What kind of chips are you looking for? Do you need help? He's climbing up. Hold on one second, everyone. He's climbing up the bookcase. Hey, what kind do you want? Which one? I know. What chips do you want? Tell me which one.
Okay.
This one? Okay, I'll go. No more knocking on my door, okay? Stay with Mom. Okay, well you stay in the living room then. Okay? Good idea. I'm gonna eat them in the kitchen. He wanted puffy Cheetos out of my closet. Don't ask why I hide chips in the closet. It's a I have children thing.
Yeah.
What, Henry? Yes. Alright, off you go. Can you please open up my chip bag? Yes, I can. Anyway, so I guess I was saying our favorite book, but I guess it doesn't have to be your favorite book. If you can like many books.
Just talk about good books for a while.
Yeah. So just to finish up what we were talking about. So like you were saying like, oh well, some people write things that are different or not what you would expect. I mean, I think of, you brought up J.K. Rowling, or you look at Stephanie Meyer, like who wrote Twilight, right? Like Twilight's awful. Like I know people like it, but I can't get through it. I tried and it's just too much. It's too corny for me to get through, right? But she has other stuff that she's written that's far better, but didn't get any attention, right?
Well, and I think that depends on the intended audience, right? So
yeah,
like,
that's true.
I will fully admit, like when I was a teenager, I read Twilight. Now, part of that was because I thought all these girls liked it, and so I said, "Okay, let me read this and figure out what am I missing."
Yeah, that's true. Keep in mind, people, this is the age before like smartphones, like and like we had MySpace, and I think Facebook had started, but nobody was on it.
Facebook was out. Yeah.
It was a college thing.
Make it sound so old.
Yeah, I know, it does make us sound old. It's been, I mean, I graduated high school coming on 11 years ago. Like it has been
yourself. I graduated in 2012.
Oh, that's true.
So
I mean, that's only 3 years later than me.
Yeah, well, I know. It's it's the same as my wife. My wife graduated in 2009 as well.
Yeah. But like this is in an era where people like whatever was popular, what was what was going around the halls by word of mouth or
in rural Iowa.
Yeah. Exactly. So my issue with Twilight was that I was dating a girl in high school. She had signed copies of Twilight, okay? Big Twilight fan, which is fine. But she was like, oh, you got to read it. Because I'm like, well, why is it so interesting? Like, you went and got this signed by the author. Like, how is it that good? And she's like, well, I don't know. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. Here. This is back when the Midnight Sun, like first 360 pages manuscript got leaked online, which was Twilight, but from Edward's point of view. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I read that first. I read all 360 pages of it or whatever it was that came out. And I was like, wow, like this is really good. Like I was very interested, right? So then when I was given Twilight and said, oh, well, if you really enjoyed that, then here, this is just from Bella's point of view. And I think I read the first chapter and I was like, nah, I'm okay. She's like, she was just such a girl. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Like her, because to me it was like, oh, well, she's like sitting there going, oh, why is he acting so weird? When in his point of view, it's like describing his like internal thoughts of like how much he wants to basically just eat her, right? And he's like clawing the underside of the desk and like leaving all these scratch marks underneath because he's trying to just hold himself back from her scent or whatever it is. And I was like, it was just really good writing. You know what I mean?
No!
Uh-oh, what's going on?
Nothing.
Are you in the cavern? Where are you?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. Oh!
Okay. Anyway, and even J.K. Rowling, like, she's branched out and tried to do other stuff, but like,
It hasn't caught on.
No, because it's not Harry Potter. And it's as simple as that. Like,
Right. Everybody knows you who knows her for one thing. And I mean, and it's kind of like, I think a good like a joke about that is like The Simpsons, right? Like the guy's made how many shows, and yet everyone's like, "Where's the next Simpsons movie?"
right.
Nobody
Yeah.
wants to talk about his creations of Futurama or
Yeah.
all these other fantastic works that he's done. They just care about the one trick pony. Like,
Yeah. And that's all about fan base as well. Like, you think about Harry Potter, like, the fan base of Harry Potter is astronomical. You mean, I don't think you can measure the size of people who know Harry Potter or read Harry Potter or still live by Harry Potter standards. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, anything that is, yeah, like when you have things where that like defines a family, like what do you guys do as a family? Oh, we go to. It's like the Disney thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like we're a Disney family. Like that's what we do. Okay,
Yeah.
well that's a little creepy, but okay.
Right. So, I don't know. It's like some authors seem to be able to branch off and create stuff, and others, like, I don't think they intentionally do it. I think they just accidentally get pigeonholed from their own series, and they didn't expect that to be the case. Like if J.K. Rowling wrote another Harry Potter book besides The Cursed Child, but if she wrote another Harry Potter book, everyone would go read it. Who's a Harry Potter fan?
You're absolutely right. I mean,
They
and you
even
do see that.
they even read The Cursed Child, like when that came out. Like people are just like itching for more Harry Potter just because it's Harry Potter.
Obsessed to relive that nostalgia.
Yeah. Anyway,
I have
so
no idea where I am.
one book that it's really short. I'll hold it up here. Like, it's not a big book. My other thing is I'm really bad with big books, like long books. So I tend to read shorter things. I mean, this is 224 pages, but the book's like a 8 by 10. You know what I mean? And the font is, it's normal size.
It's not a grandpa book.
No, it's not a grandpa book. He does have a large print one. I've got it here somewhere. I have a few of his books. So have you ever heard of Mitch Albom?
I have not.
He's most known for Tuesdays with Morrie, which is about an old professor of his who had Lou Gehrig's and eventually passed away. And he kind of just like writes his experience with him. He goes and visits him every Tuesday and writes about the experience. And so he's most well known for that, which is a nonfiction, but he also has some pretty decent fiction stuff. The one that I really got hooked with is called The Timekeeper. I pulled up the bio for it. I'll read it to you and you can tell me what you think. So it says, The Timekeeper is a compelling fable about the first man on Earth to count the hours, the man who became Father Time. In The Timekeeper, the inventor of the world's first clock is punished for trying to measure God's greatest gift. He is banished to a cave for centuries and forced to listen to the voices of all who come after him, seeking more days, more years, etc. Eventually, with his soul nearly broken, Father Time is granted his freedom, along with a magical hourglass and a mission, a chance to redeem himself by teaching two earthly people the true meaning of time. He returns to our world now, dominated by the hour counting he so innocently began, and commences a journey with two unlikely partners, one a teenage girl who is about to give up on life, the other a wealthy old businessman who wants to live forever. To save himself, he must save them both and stop the world to do so. So this book's actually super interesting because the way he wrote it is to me is super interesting. So it's one of those where there's three different main characters, and every chapter alternates the whose perspective you're seeing. So it's a really good page turner because you get one person's little piece, and then the next chapter isn't about that person anymore. It's about the other person. So you're like, well, I got to read to get back to this person because I want to know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, I got to the point with this book. This is one of the only books that I ever started. And then, like, once I got to about the middle, like right when he gets let out of the cave to go and help these other two people, like once that whole dialogue is established and like who he is, who they are, then it starts doing that. Like almost every chapter it switches between the perspectives, and once I got to that point I couldn't put it down. I stayed up till like 3 a.m. just reading through it because it just slowly blew my mind how every single one of the main characters eventually get entangled into each other's lives. So it's very interesting, and it's only, like I said, it's like an 8x10, and it's like 224 pages or something. So it's a light read. Like my grandma reads, Stephen King and stuff that's like 1,200 pages. But it's one of my favorite books that I've ever read just because of how much it made me just page turn. Oh,
Well, that's also a good question of like what makes our favorite books. Like,
right.
What about that made you not able to put it down? And it sounds like it was the character development. It was the wanting to know, the suspense of not knowing what's going on.
Yeah. And that's one thing that, like, when I writing is I try and capture that type of a thing. Like so I have this one book I started in high school, right? It was in first person point of view, and I started getting confused. So I changed it to third person point of view, which is a whole entire nightmare process of rewriting a book in a totally different perspective. And now I've gotten to a point with it to where I'm on like my 4th like full-time revision on it, to where now I'm looking at things and saying, is what I see in my head what is actually on the paper? And thankfully I have Christy looking at it with me, because she's able to say, I don't understand what's happening here, or I'm not seeing this, like what is going on here? And I'm like, oh well, it's just he's seeing this and that and that. And she goes, no, that's not clear. So I'm able to take that step back and be like, okay, how much of what I'm thinking in my head is actually being written down? Because I get nervous sometimes about over explaining, right? I don't want it to be too wordy or too much.
Right. Kind of like how Tolkien does that, where he like goes off the deep end explaining every little thing.
Right. But some people love that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's the other thing.
I think the king of that, my sister. So my sister is an author. Like, she legitimately has 300-page books, and she always talks about how Bradbury is the king of not of dialogue, but of what is it called?
Sensory details.
Yeah.
You can call them sensory details. Ray Bat, he wrote Of Mice and Men, right? Am I thinking of the right person?
Fahrenheit 451.
Fahrenheit 451. Dude, that book, I read that in high school, and that was one of the only books that was like assigned that I was like, this book is so cool.
Yeah.
It's such a good book.
So, have you read Brave New World?
No, I've not read it. I've heard of it though, and I've seen it, but I don't think I've ever. I think I was probably assigned to read it, but never did. Kind of a thing.
Right. Spark noted your way through it at some point.
Right. But that ruins it. That ruins the like real feeling of the author.
Yeah. But it gets you through,
But when you have to write, when you got to write a 500-page or 500-word essay on it in middle school or high school, then that's all you need.
Yeah. Yep.
No. But yeah, I agree. Sensory detail is something that I've been working on, because there's two things. So with my book, it's done. Start to finish, the whole plot is done. Okay? But my biggest challenges are believable, like 100% character development,
Okay.
and like including those location sensory details that are playing out in my head but aren't showing up on the paper. Like when I read it, like I still see the full surroundings and the scenario that's happening, but it's not actually there on the paper. And at first I did it on purpose because I was just trying to write the whole story. But then I was
Just get
also
it
like,
down.
oh well, I when I was in college, so I majored in creative writing, right? And so like,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I was an English major and my emphasis was creative writing. So I took a bunch of writing classes, and they always said, trust your reader, trust that they're smart, write like they're smart, right? And so for me, that kind of pulled me away from too many sensory details. And now I'm realizing that, you know what? Maybe it's not a bad thing.
Right. Well, and I think there's a difference, right? There's a difference between like trusting that your reader is intelligent and then also just expecting them to be able to have the same vision as you. And I think that in itself would be an unfair expectation.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Anyway, so those are the two things that I really struggle with when it comes to writing. And I try my best to like establish my characters before I start writing, but then they kind of go stale. So I've been working on making my characters more believable, especially in this book because I started writing it over a decade ago. And I was in high school when I did, and I didn't know what I was doing, and it was just like an idea. So now that I'm going back and doing this major edit on it, that's my main focus, is adding those details and making my character more relatable, I guess. So,
Hey, do you remember how to make a repair table?
a repair table? Nope.
Smoker,
I honestly
photography.
didn't know that you could make a repair table.
Okay.
There's like so many new things that were added to Minecraft that I've kind of forgotten and missed a lot of them. Is it what's the table? Let's see. There's a grindstone, but I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
There's a smithing table, which I don't think that does anything yet, does it? The fletching table, I know that doesn't work yet. There's some tables that are created but don't actually do anything.
Right.
But they will
Those
eventually.
are actually used. Yeah. It's not that they will eventually. It's that they also can be used to retrain
Oh, for villagers.
villagers.
Oh, okay. That's a villager thing. Got it. There's a loom. Oh, it's nighttime. Do we need to go to sleep?
Yeah, sure. Let's go to sleep.
Did I just hear a witch? Running, I'm running. Anyway, so I highly recommend that book if you haven't read it. I've got a hard copy if you ever want to borrow it. You could probably read it in a day. It's just interesting. You know, like to have a main character, like to take on a main character like Father Time and do something that doesn't seem like super cliche. It's pretty good. Then again, when it comes to cliches, so when I was in college, they always said, don't write cliches. Don't do cliches. They've been done before. Do something unique. But then, at the same time, cliches work. Like, writers don't like when they read other writers' work that have cliches in them, but readers love cliche.
Well, I think part
they
of
know
that
what to
is just
expect.
it. Right, like it gives a sense of like there's some foundation to it. Like,
Yeah. But what's worse than that is when you say, oh, that's a cliche. I'll just tweak it and make it my own so it's not a cliche. But then it's just confusing. Because they're like, what is this? I don't understand. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. Come here, skeleton. Let's go.
Give me about 2 minutes, Derek. I'll be right back.
Okay, you're good. I'm gonna go kill some skeletons. I know there's some skelly horses over here. Because they took me out earlier. But I've got myself a sword this time. There he is. There they are. Let's go. Should probably have a shield, but whatever. Oh, sick. He dropped his helmet. Oh, he also... Oh, and his bow. Oh, my stuff's still here. Sweet. My inventory full? No. Sweet deal. I got all my stuff back. Fire protection 2, unbreaking 1, aqua affinity. What about this bow? Power 1? Darn, that's too bad.
Hey, it's gonna be more like 510. There was a problem with a 3D printer, and it's a problem I gotta take care of.
Oh no! Alright, sounds good. Take your time. Who's she on the phone with? Oh boy. Let's see. Right, you have a couple hearts. Oh wait, can I already control you? That's right, because you're a bone horse. You don't need a saddle to be controlled. Alright, everyone gets a horse. Well, now I gotta build a pen. Which I should be able to do with these. Well, who's she? Oh, she's talking to Chelsea. She's talking to Michael's wife. Boink, 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 boink. No, I don't want to run out. Boink, boink, boink. Boink, boink. Ooh. Boink, boink. Shoot, I'm short. Oh, I need to grab more cobblestone. Do. What's up, everyone? I'm talking to myself again, which has been a long time since I've talked to myself. Usually I've got people that I'm talking to. So this is fun. Gonna be a lot of quiet time of me just doing random Minecraft stuff. I need 6 or 12 total here, so. But yeah. My horse is escaping. Oh, wrong thing. Do, 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 do. Oh, I'll just ride him over there. What am I doing? Hup. Yep. Put up. Hup. Put up. Get off. That's a problem. I need to make a fence. Or not a fence, I used to be able to... There we go. To jump off and land on the thing. Spider's been here forever. I'm gonna end him. Kaboom. Doop 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 doop. So the 4 horsemen have different stats. Each horse from the horsemen have a different... Oh, you're not healthy. Have a different stat. So like one can jump really high. Not this one. This one's the not good one. Oh, come on. No, I'll be surprised if he makes it. This one can jump high. What about this guy? None of them have a ton of hearts. Do you even jump? Oh boy. You can't jump up. What? Huh. Boo. Yes. What?
Chelsea wants me to see her house in Minecraft.
All right, I'm not gonna burn the house down.
Oh jeez, it was that bad? Sorry. Krista's here. Chelsea wants to show Christy her house. I think it's over here. Christy, what's your favorite book? We're talking about favorite book today.
My favorite book?
I know the answer,
What is it?
but go ahead, say it.
I have lots of favorite books.
What's your favorite book?
I mean, Harry Potter's like the easily
That's
the
what
first
I
answer.
thought you would say.
But then there's like, besides Harry Potter, all sorts of favorite books.
I really like the Apple Horseman series.
The what?
The what?
Yeah. Yes, Avenel. You ready?
We're here.
Guess it's time to phone a friend.
Phone a friend. Here's her home. What am I showing her, Chelsea?
Pretty. Hold on. Avenel's saying she's hungry, and you know.
How's she hungry?
I don't know.
She ate like 10 mini tacos from Costco.
That sounds like a growth spurt.
Dude, that girl, no joke. This girl is always hungry. Every time you turn around, she's like, eat, eat, eat. You're like, dude, you just ate. Eat. Yeah, she's saying it right now. Eat, eat, eat. Oh, you have a anvil bench. Ah, I need 10 levels first. Hey, do you have an experience farm yet?
I'm working on it. What do you need?
I need XP, which you can't give me. So.
Yeah, but I have XP, so maybe I can
Oh, do you have
reforge your
10
thing.
levels?
I have 21.
Oh, well then, sir.
I was at 30. Here.
I have 2 hats that need to be fused into 1 hat.
They'll lose their enchantment.
No, I don't think so. You should be able to combine the 2 enchantments. Or the 3.
It will do that.
Yay!
There you go.
Thanks. I got it from killing the skeleton horsemen that are outside.
Mm.
And I brought the
wanna go to bed?
horses here. Yeah, we can go lay down. Oh, wait. Chrissy's back. Here's their house. That's the outside.
That's pretty.
That was the only Spanish I knew. I hate
Is there
this.
something specific she wanted to show you? Or just in general?
This is my house, the
Yeah,
whole house.
just the whole house.
Alright,
The whole house.
so here's
Come
the
on inside.
outside.
Okay.
There's a
I'm actually really
chimney.
proud of it. So.
Mhm.
And they're working on some upper roof area. And then that's a door outside. There's a fire pit, which actually looks really nice, by the way.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then
Jesus above the fire pit?
Mhm.
is that
Isn't that cool?
Yes, way to go.
is that what that is?
Yeah, I saw he's like praying stuff. Okay, he's on his knees. Oh, look, he has little angel wings. Precious.
I actually don't know if that's Jesus, but there's angel wings and he's praying. It's not as common Jesus.
It looks like
Yes.
Wally's peeking out from behind the rock, and it's just his shadow. I never noticed that before. Okay, downstairs is a mine entrance. Oh no, it's like a little
You know, the
balcony.
basement doesn't count. That's not a me thing.
Okay. Let's go upstairs then, yeah? Ow,
This is
cat!
beautiful.
Cat's attacking my foot.
You're so nice.
There's her stairs.
Dogs are better.
Dude, man. Sometimes the cat is an
Well, I love
angel,
you,
and then
we go
other
back way
times
too far
she's
to
not.
hate each other. So let's just be nice.
You can hate me. It would be kind of fun if we hated each other.
Be kind of fun.
How would that be fun? Explain.
I thought your family was
Derek,
all
how long
like
have we been
great
recording?
friends, trying to tell you
About to hit 50 minutes. Minus
Okay.
minus 10 for how long you stepped away if you want to minus 10 off that.
Okay, we can play that game.
Do you want me to tell
Rob.
you what happened with the 3D printer?
Rob, close the door when you walk out. Thank you. Yeah, what happened?
Just for the record, besides Harry Potter, my favorite book is The Little Princess.
The Little Princess?
Yeah.
Is that like The Little Prince, but the girl version?
It's by the same writer as The Secret Garden, but I can't
Oh.
think of her name right now.
Okay.
it's a
Cool.
book of-
I don't know what The
Is
Little
it-
Princess is. I never heard of it.
It's
The Little Prince, is that just, Machiavelli for kids?
The Little Prince is Le Petit Prince. It's a French book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cool, love. Thanks. Love you.
All right, so I have a 3D printer.
Right.
Specifically, I have a 3D printer to for fun side projects, but actually I've been using it for some serious good lately. And by what I mean by that is that I started making hospital equipment.
Oh, okay. For COVID.
Yep, for COVID. So one of the things is so my roommate's brother is a security guard at Children's Hospital in
Right.
Salt Lake City.
Okay, yep.
And he had said, "Hey, I heard you guys have a 3D print. I remember you guys talking about you had a 3D printer. Do you think you could make me one of those clasp things that takes the pressure off my ears when I wear a face mask?"
Oh, okay.
And he was like, "I mean, if it's not too hard, I get it. If it's going to be a whole big problem, we get the STL, we get the file, we look into making it. We're like, yeah, sure. And we've been actually we've talked about, we would love to be able to make stuff for
To help. Yeah.
local hospitals, but we hadn't been able to find anybody to talk to It just hadn't been working out. So like, great, we have this thing. We're like, okay, now let's start prototyping. We have it down now to where we can print one of those face clasps in 20 minutes, and it takes less than 2 meters of material.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
To put it in comparison, I buy filament, the plastic that you print with. I buy it by the kilogram,
Oh, okay.
and it's about 350 meters
Oh,
of
gosh.
material. So
Significant.
we started, yeah, right. So we have it down. So our printer, we can print 8 of these clasps at a time, and it takes about 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Does it just print them in like a template or something?
So the way 3D printing works is, do you have any experience with CAD?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like 3D rendering software. It's exactly 3D rendering software. You just use your 3D rendering software, you create your object, and then you bring it into what's called a slicer. And the slicer is the software designed for your 3D printer.
Okay.
That will create what's called a G code, which is the file that tells the printer how to actually make the
object or whatever.
the object. Yeah. So like in what level, like in what, how do you do the different levels of the plastic and all that type of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, so we set that up so it'll print 8 at a time on the bed, and then we just let it go, and then we have a timer, and when it goes off, we go and we reset it to another. Like we pop off the things we made, and that's
Start
that.
making more.
Yeah, we just reset. So one thing we've been having a problem with is the material not attaching to the bed. So normally what you have is, so in our case, we have a glass bed that we attach, that's what it prints on, okay? It's a glass panel. So I did some research online when I first got this, and what I read was that one of the best ways to make sure that stuff sticks to it is to use a glue stick. You just use like a glue stick, rub it on, and that creates an adhesive surface for it.
Right. Makes
But
sense.
over time, that builds up a lot of plastic. Now, the interesting problem that we'd had was we haven't been printing in this volume. Well, that's it's not volume, it's surface area. Normally we do prints that are usually 4 to 6 inches high, but it's a relatively small base. But now we're doing a print every hour and a half, and it's using up the majority of the bed space.
Oh.
So now all of a sudden we need ridiculous, like we're just putting on ridiculous amounts of
Glue.
And the problem is that if it's too high, they sorry, I'm killing all the chickens. If the material isn't even, then it doesn't evenly distribute heat on the bed. So it's a heated bed as well as a heated nozzle that extrudes the filament. So because of uneven heat, it won't print properly, and then that creates all sorts of different problems. So what happened here was I made a mistake. I accidentally I scraped off the bed trying to get some of the glue off, but I accidentally scraped off all the glue.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that was bad. So because I scraped off all the glue, the plastic didn't stick to the glass.
Oh.
And because of that, it spalled, so it just wasn't attaching to anything. It fed back on itself, and the feeder housing became full of glue, the melted plastic.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
So it was a whole lot of melted plastic. Not fun. Not fun. It was frustrating, to say the least. But
Well, did you fix it?
the majority of it, I pulled out the majority of the plastic. There's still a little bit in there, but it's like not going to be a fire hazard now. But you could smell like burnt plastic all over, and it was
Yuck.
a mess, and it was very frustrating because it's one of those things where it's like if a print fails, it sucks. But like when you're actually doing something, and we're trying to like print as many of these as possible because it's for a good cause. Like
Yeah.
we're literally trying to create these things for essential workers.
Yeah.
Like it really just sucks because it sets us back.
So I'm assuming you're just donating them?
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously we're not going to charge for them.
Yeah.
In fact, we're doing some outreach programs. We're going to so the company that I work for found out about it, and they're like, hey, do you think you could take some pictures so that way we can like show in our weekly newsletter, like, hey, look at how some of our employees have taken initiative to
Do something.
like how we're trying to support the community.
Right.
Which I'm cool with. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, here you go. So, but I'm hoping that I can get some good community outreach with it.
Yeah.
And then I can be like, hey, if you would like to support this, we'd love to have some community support with this. If you could, either donate filament, because like it's not expensive.
Right.
These things cost. There's like, I don't think it's even a penny to print one.
Right.
It's that cheap.
And
But,
the fact
I
that you
mean-
can make so many from one spool is crazy.
Right. Well, and then the cool thing is, I have a buddy at work. I've made really good friends with the IT director.
Yeah.
He had 3 3D printers because he does model airplanes, and so he'll print off airplanes and then he builds motors into them.
That's
Way
awesome.
cool. But he can only set up 2 at a time, and so he loaned me the 3rd printer, so that way we're gonna have hopefully 4 printers printing nonstop. And then we're trying to do some more community outreach to try and get more people to have printers. And what I'm hoping is that I can also get some donors where it's like, okay, yeah, you don't have a 3D printer, but you can donate $20 and that'll get another spool. And that way we can keep printing, and I'm not dropping, eventually $100-200
Right.
on plastic. Anyway.
Huh. That's crazy. Well, that's awesome. Just a sudden change of topic. Over by my half-built tractor, because the Rome crashed last time, I have a pen with 4 horses in it, and they don't need saddles to be ridden. So,
That's fantastic.
and they're skeletons. So,
So you don't need a saddle for them? Like you can just you can control where they go?
yep.
Oh, that's amazing. I've been needing that.
Yep.
Okay, next up is cartography tables. So we can actually start mapping out our area.
Oh, can't we just make a cartography table?
Yeah, we can make a cartography table. I wanted to get a method of transportation before I made the maps.
Oh, I get you. Or saddles. Also, llamas spawned over here that weren't here before. So now we got llamas.
You can't make saddles. You can only catch saddles while fishing.
You can also find saddles in desert temples, villages, or the jungle temple.
Right.
So,
But
there's
all of that was making it a little bit difficult for me to find saddles.
Wait, so to make a cartography table, you just need a crafting? Hold on. That's not right.
No, you need 2 pieces of paper and 4 blocks.
Oh, okay. You need to do it in a crafting table is what that symbol means. Got it. But yeah, feel free to use the horses Some of them don't jump high because they suck. We didn't get a good roll on our quality of horseman horses, which is unfortunate. But one of them can
Darn.
jump over the fence. The other ones you have to use the gate while you're on their back. So,
The problem.
but I put a block on the back side, so when you come back, you can just hop in and get in. So they're really good for going over single blocks. That's about it. Anyway, well, I think we'll call it today. We are hitting our time frame here.
Sweet.
But thanks everyone for listening to this after, because no one listened to it during. But yeah, I think it was a good conversation. I enjoy talking about writing, obviously, and heck, maybe we send each other some writing stuff and we read it, and then we can do some type of writing review with each other, sort of a thing.
I would love that. Like, to have somebody to help me, just like keep me on task, so I can.
Yeah. What is the word? Peer review, I guess is what it's called.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
But
a workshop.
and I think maybe next
A
time,
writer's
like, we can
workshop.
keep. We talked a lot about the writing process a little bit today, and so I think maybe we could probably come back to actual books that we do like to read.
Absolutely.
We didn't really cover that topic.
Yeah, we went off on a... But I think
Couple
it's
tangents.
good to talk about that because it is relevant. I mean, if you're going to read a good book, you have to really be able to know or say why it's a good book. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I think anything that causes emotion, I think it's very healthy for an individual to be able to explain why that emotion is triggered.
Yeah. And writing is just such a not writing, but reading is such a major thing for so many people's lives, especially right now, where for some people that's all they have to do. They don't have, TV, or they don't want to watch TV, or they've watched all the TV they can handle.
Yeah.
And
That'd be really interesting
they're turning
to
to
see
books.
if this whole thing turns into like a literature renaissance.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Because it was actually really ironic to see how there had been a Dungeons and Dragons renaissance before this,
Yeah.
and now that's gone. Like, the people have been trying to figure out, how do we continue doing this
Yeah. Well,
when you can't be together?
yeah, exactly. Who knows? It'll be really interesting. Anyway, well, thanks everyone. This has been Podcraft episode 3. Tune in next Friday when we will be at it again. See you next time. Count to 20.
Didn't we have for some redstone?
Do we have redstone? I don't know.
I swear we have some redstone.
I know I grabbed a few.
There's 3 redstone.